Alright, if you guys have been watching my channel for about a year or so, you'll know that we already did a review on this. And if you watched that review, you know I absolutely shat on this car. So I thought I'd redo the review since I took the last video off my channel. I'll redo the review and actually do a proper review, talk about what I actually like and not what I only hate about this thing. But yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, I wanted to talk about the front end first because, I mean, just look at it. It's absolutely beautiful. But yeah, you got the stuff that stands out, like the huge hood scoop, which is actually decently big, and it's got some little fins in there to help direct air. Then you got your STI badge to know that you're not a pansy and bought a WRX. You're a big boy. And now you got an STI badge down here, just a little one on the front spoiler, and there's going to be a lot of STI badges on this thing. I was looking for some fake vents, didn't find any, but they did block out this corner piece right here. From here to here is covered with plastic, which is interesting because I don't know why you'd want to do that, but I'm not an engineer at Subaru, so I couldn't tell you. But these are also, I feel like you definitely could make it like a really good brake duct, like vent right here to get some more air to your brakes. But if you come around, you just have your fog light, and what even is this? Is this like an extra blinker or just an extra like running light? I don't know what it is, but it has like an orangish tint to it. But you have like a little vent look right here, like they could have made a little vent but didn't. So if it's an STI, just make it a vent. All right, I wanted to take a look at the rear end, which makes me have to bring up the point that this car isn't 100% stock, believe it or not. This is not factory. Chase and I actually put this on his car, and then he also has a muffler delete. So that's the only thing that's modified on this car is the wing and the muffler delete. And is that, am I right? Is that the only thing modified on it?
Muffler delete, the rain light.
Oh yeah, and the rain light. And that.
And the shift knob.
Which we have the stock one on it right now. But yeah, he had a cool aftermarket shift knob on it. But yeah, I really like the way this looks because on just when his little normal wing that he had, it was literally like about this big of a little spoiler, a little lip. That's what Subaru calls it. And then you have your normal huge STI wing that's in the shape of a rectangle that have on the back, which I think those look really, really good. But I like this big lip look. It's definitely not, I feel like it's not sported a lot. Everybody always goes with the STI wing, but I love the way it looks. And you know, you could actually get some functional aero from it as well. So that's always nice. Yeah, it actually has some side vents here, which I think the WRX has them as well, except the WRX would have a little WRX badge instead of an STI badge. But yeah, so it's fully set up for a vent. It definitely could be a vent, but since it's Subaru, it's not. It's not a real vent. It doesn't go through. There's a little plastic barrier right here. So I just ask myself, why the hell would you not make that a real vent when it's completely set up for it? I usually just say these have good brakes or big brakes or whatever, and they do. They have good brakes. They have a substantial upgrade from the regular WRX, and as you can see, it says STI. But yeah, you have slotted disc brakes, which reduces the surface area of the brake caliper itself, or the brake rotor, I'm sorry. The brake rotor, which allows it to cool quicker when you're doing some, you know, high performance driving. A little nice touch. And when I was looking at the side skirts, they looked pretty, you know, pretty big, like pointed outwards. They actually came out a little bit here, obviously. That comes out even more. And, you know, side skirts help with the downforce and the direction of airflow, which would be really good if this vent actually worked, but it doesn't. But yeah, so if this is something that doesn't come on the WRX, then that's an interesting thing to put on the STI. All right, one of my favorite parts about the interior is all the STI logos you get. You get one here, you get one here, you get them on the headrest, you get them on the shift knob. There's probably more, but I can't find them. Down there. But yeah, STI logos are nice, so you're constantly reminded that you spent more money. And then you have carbon fiber down here. I am not sure. We think it's fake. We think it's fake. If anything, if it was going to be real, this would be real, and that would be fake. but they probably wouldn't do that. If anything, it would just either all be real or all be fake. So we're gonna assume it's fake. I think that's a proper assumption. If I'm gonna spend 30 something or 40 something thousand dollars on a car, put some goddamn real carbon fiber in it. But yeah, so the carbon fiber really looks cool. They didn't put any on the door, but they have this like black leather stitched in there, which looks really nice as well. I don't mind that at all. Kind of comforts your arm if anything. You got screens here, one screen there. Then you got one screen there, technically two screens. One to tell you your climate control, and then you got another one to tell you your boost, and that screen goes through and shows a bunch of different things. Oh, look at that boost gauge. Boom. You got a nice clock if you want your Subi to have a Rolex on it. And you got your MPG, and you got your miles per gallon in the last 30 minutes. And then you have your drivetrain, so it'll tell you what changes it's making to the torque vectoring in the all-wheel drive system, which is cool. But we're gonna leave it on boost gauge, so we can look at the boost while we're driving it. It's got a screen, pretty simple to use. So you got your audio and maps and all kinds of stuff. Never had a problem using it. I don't think Chase has ever had a problem using it. It's nothing crazy. It's not like Apple CarPlay. Apple CarPlay is nice. All right, so this down here is really cool. It's SI drive. Controls the drivetrain and how it moves power from side to side, from front to back. But you have regular sport mode, which you just twist to the left. And then you have sport sharp, which you would twist to the right. And then you have push or just intelligent mode, and then you push that in. And then on here is where you could manually change the differential and the way that works. So you could lessen it, which what this would do would send more power to the rear, or you could push it forward and they would send more power to the front. And then this, you can actually switch a manual mode, and you can actually control at which point of how much slip you would want before the traction control and whatnot kicks in and sends power to different places. So that's what the manual mode looks like. There's different settings at which you could actually change when you want your diff to start doing what it's doing. Or you can just put it in the pluser mode, so you can go into auto and you can just leave it in plus. So if you're on like a gravel road or something more off-road, you'd want to put it in plus, so it has more 50-50 differential from front to rear. Or when you're in a paved road that has a lot of corners on it, you might want to put it more rear, make it more rear bias so you don't catch any understeer. And then this is what it looks like when you go through the sport modes. Sport sharp, and then your intelligent drive mode. It has like a nice little like rally tune horn to it, a little high pitched, get out of my way, but yeah, works well. Let's drive it. So now we are behind the wheel of the 2017 Subaru WRX STI. And first off, it sounds amazing, which this car did sound pretty good when it was stock, when it had stock mufflers, and it was still had some decent noise to it. But when you just take off the mufflers, it's not extremely loud, but it sounds amazing. So the STI sounds great. The second thing I want to talk about is the steering feel. The steering feel is weird. It definitely takes some getting used to, but it's hard to point out exactly like why it feels weird. For some reason when you go into corners, it feels like you have an awkward resistance as you're turning. But yeah, steering wheel's weird. Once you actually take some corners, I'll talk a little bit more about it. The clutch it's firm, which is nice. It's not super light. It's definitely heavier when you're pushing it in, and it has a little bit of a later engage point, which can kind of get some getting used to, because you'll start to add more throttle than you should be too early, so you'll kind of get that like little slip in there, which you don't want to do. But after 10 or 15 minutes behind the wheel of this thing, you kind of learn all of its interesting quirks about the actual driving experience, and you get used to it. The throttle response has a slight delay, really slight, but you can notice it, but it's slight, just a little bit. But you usually only know, it's an MX-5. You usually only notice it when you're like high in the RPMs. I gave this car a lot of shit when I initially reviewed it, because it's a big price tag over the WRX, and there's not a lot different on paper. Meaning the WRX for this generation has 268 horsepower, and this has 305. So you're not getting a huge amount of difference in the actual power when you're actually driving the vehicle. But you're paying quite a bit more. You're paying a decent amount more per se. Like this on average would cost, you know, $10,000 to $15,000 more than a WRX, and you're only getting 35 more horsepower. So where does that actual money come into play? And it comes into play in places that you can't really tell when you're just normally driving the vehicle. The gearbox is different, the axles are different, the brakes are different, the whole shifting thing is different, the gear lever and the clutch, it's all different, and it's all made to be stronger, and it can handle a lot more horsepower. You can beat up on it a lot more because it's been heavily reinforced by Subaru to make sure that this car can handle more give, more horsepower, more play, especially like if you wanted to take this on a gravel road and off-road it, since it is a rally car, and that's what it's made to do. So, but this one, they actually, I mean, it handles extremely well on the pavement. It's got stiff suspension. It's not like one of the old like 22B rally cars, obviously, but yeah, my guess, it does really good of both being off-road, like on some gravel or on a loose surface, and being on the road as well. While you're driving this thing, like, you can tell this car is a car that can handle it, in the sense that, like, you don't have to be super soft with it. You don't have to be super careful with it. It'll, you know, you can throw it into a corner and it'll find grip where grip isn't supposed to be. I mean, this is like a little like GTR almost with the drivetrain that it has. I mean, it's just phenomenal with grip. Oh man, it stays very flat. You know, it has a little bit of body roll, but none that would really ever be an issue. And you could definitely make it more flat through the corners, but just the way it is, it's phenomenal. It's great. You have the perfect amount of power where, like, you know, I've always said you can have fun with 220 horsepower, you know, right around there if it's a decently light vehicle, and you can have plenty of fun with that. But when you just add just a little bit more to the point where you get yourself over 300 horsepower, it just adds so much more to the experience, because the acceleration is just that much better. And so when you're coming out of corners and coming into corners, I mean, you can feel it when you're downshifting and when you're upshifting. I mean, it's great. Or sixth. Sixth feels like it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like you gotta go down to the right. Sixth gear. And this is a pretty easy car to rev match into. I also think this has much different gear ratios than 6-speed WRX. They do feel pretty short. I don't know if it's because you got like rally gears or something, but they do feel pretty short. There's not like a huge difference from gear to gear, because right when you shift, you're boom, boost. So not a lot of turbo lag when you're actually like going through the gears. If you start at like a lower RPM around like 3 or 3,500, then you're gonna feel some turbo lag. But once you're going through the gears, there's virtually almost none when it comes to turbo lag, which is really nice. How's this thing's rev hang? Not bad. The 2 previous years to this car, they've had some bad rev hang. This could be one of the years when they had the bad rev hang, which, like right there, the RPMs didn't catch up in time, so they shot down. But I want to say in the later generation of this car, towards the 2020 era, is when they actually fixed the rev hang problem. but it doesn't really seem like that much of an issue right now. It could be worse than the WRX, but for this, I don't really see it as a problem. Just listen to it. Oh. That sound, really dangerous because a lot of it's on the cliffside. Obviously you don't want to go into the river or into the rocks. Safety is the #1 priority, 110%. So when you're doing this type of stuff, obviously be extremely careful because it's not worth possibly hurting the car, hurting yourself, hurting other people. None of it is worth going out for a drive. So when you do go out for a drive, you got to keep that in mind. If you want the absolutely most badass all-wheel drive, rally, tarmac, fucking badass. Did I already say that? Yeah. All-wheel drive. This is the car to get. Seriously, I mean, with the manual transmission and the all-wheel drive system, and if you want like a manual transmission, I mean, it's a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder with a turbo making 305 horsepower. I mean, you literally can't go wrong with Subaru's best all-wheel drive system literally in the game. So if this is a car that you would want, I would highly recommend it because there's just tons of fun that can be had in this thing.